Hi, I'm Stan Kessler, and this is my partner, Todd Strait, and this is A Matter of Time. This is a clinic about time and all the aspects thereof, and how to develop a sense of time in yourself internally, and also the dynamics of time within a group setting. And it's an old subject, but this is our take on it.
So kind of our intention is to, discuss how to strengthen time, as Stan said. But if you're not familiar with how to make a rhythm section sound stronger, or if just this genre is not as familiar to you as others, this may help yourself and, your bands in school and out of school. So
It's also intended to help you relax and be more creative once you have established the sense of time within yourself and with others. So, in other words, you'll have a lot more fun.
So there's a couple different ways that I see to play really good time. One is metronomically, where it's absolutely steady and strong. Obviously, the best way to, or one of the best ways to develop that is to play with the metronome. And that can be a little laborious at first, but it actually, once it gets comfortable, it's a lot of fun.
Playing with recordings is an excellent way of establishing your internal clock. And I suggest that you, if you're not a drummer or even a piano player, which is a very percussive instrument, I suggest you work out with a percussion instrument with a metronome or a recording. And then recordings are obviously more fun because you're dealing with music, but make sure it's a recording that is a steady beat, something that you assume or know that it's been recorded with a click track. I have all of my students, most of which are horn players, specifically trumpet. I actually have them play drums, and what that does is, when you're playing percussion or playing drums especially, it brings the sense of time into the physical plane. It integrates it into your body, so it's not just in your head.
Okay, so as Stan mentioned, whether you're a horn player or a drummer, playing some kind of percussion instrument is a really good idea. If you have a metronome, whether it's an application on your phone or, an old school Dr. Beat like I've got, if you can set the volume to about the same volume as your percussion instrument, and just set the tempo at like 120 or some kind of medium tempo, and see how often you can hit exactly when the metronome plays. Now, if you can hear the metronome, then you're not with the metronome. Right. If you can't hear the metronome, and not because of the volume, but because of the placement, then you're with the metronome.
I would say that playing good time or having a sense of good time is your number one priority. And I've made an informal survey among my colleagues, and they all agree. All of them, 100% agree. Time is the number one thing. And horn players, if you want to become the rhythm section's best friend, what you want to do is establish a sense of trust. In fact, really, this is what it's about in general. When you're playing in an ensemble, is the way you establish a sense of trust is showing that you have excellent time.
Then, it frees everybody up to be more creative and relaxed.
There's time, which is a pulse, whatever that speed is. And then there's the feel. And the two go together, like space-time. I mean, this is time-feel. And the feel is what happens between the pulse. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got a duple subdivision, and the other end, a triple subdivision. So you got, for instance, eighth notes, da, 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 on one end, and the other end is triplets, ya, da, 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 da. And there's an infinite variety of things, or shades of those in between. And how you feel the time depends on many factors. It depends on what tune are you playing, what style it is, like what period. Because you're not going to play something that was written, say, in the 70s the same way you would play something that was written in the 30s. Also, the tempo dictates somewhat how you're going to feel the subdivision. And who you're playing with.
Okay, so while we're to strengthen your time feel, I believe that it's important to know every part of the measure. So we're going to start with the duple feel in eighth notes or 16th notes. I'm going to ask my worthy constituent Stan here to be my metronome for me, as he mentioned. So how about there? So we've got the metronome on, okay? Besides playing, stuff with the metronome that's written on a page, just thinking about the time. And so like we talked about a moment ago, trying to match it exactly. And then to get to know other parts of the measure, like let's say we want to know the ands. So 1 and 2 and 3. So what I would do would play let's say I want to do 16th notes without ever playing the downbeat. Keep going. So those two things are fairly easy, but the reason I don't want to play the downbeat is because I want to be able to feel the downbeat inside without having to actually hear it. So if I want to take just these 16th note things a little further, I might want to employ a couple of accents. So let's go back to the eighth note. So we have, and maybe I'll do an accent every other one. So it'd be, still thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Same thing with the 16th notes now, and I'll just do every other one. Or so we'll talk about triplets now. So, and of course, in jazz, this is a lot of what we deal with. So we've got, besides focusing on the bass again, we're going to think, let's take the next easiest one to hear because it's the most familiar to us, which is the third note of the triplet. And that would be basically the swing note or the swung note. So we have triplets, it's the third note of the triplet. 1, 2, 3, 1, or 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. So with the metronome, I'll be at home doing this, or and in my mind, I'm thinking ba 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 ba. I'm still thinking triplets. Okay, keep going, sir. Thank you.
My battery's running low.
Oh yeah. So the one that is not so familiar to us here in North America is the middle one. It's becoming more and more familiar, but it's the one that people seem to be less familiar with. It's not hardest or harder, it's just unfamiliar. So it's this one. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. That's the one.
And so, bottom line is like whether it's eighth notes or triplets or whatever, in between, that sense of the internal clock has to be running constantly. It never stops. So the most important thing is that you want to do as much listening as possible. Without listening, all this is moot. It's whether it's from a teacher standpoint or student standpoint, it's the number one priority. Listen, 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 listen. Even if you're not playing, but play along, and that's how I kind of learned how to play. Was before we had all the tools and technology we have now. Is I just played with records for hours and hours and hours, and learned how to play like my favorite musicians. Regarding the triplet feel, it is the essence of swing, depending on the tempo, and basically as the tempo increases, the eighth notes get more even and more, moved more towards the straight eighths. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Still a little bit of a swing feel there.
Right. One way that a drummer can change that is in the ride pattern. So.
Yeah.
And the thing is every drummer, has a different way of playing that middle note. That one. You know what I mean? Some of them are like real close. Some of them are really open. I mean, you can go from Tony Williams to Elvin Jones to, it's just everywhere, and it's a real signature note, really, But it's good to be able to kind of move around in that space, as you mentioned earlier. That's the space between the downbeats or the quarter notes that really, create the feel. So as Stan mentioned, music is a language, and there's a great video that I would recommend on YouTube by Victor Wooten, and he talks about how he developed his mastery of the language, and it just makes so much sense. So you have to, as you said, you have to be able to sing it and sing the feel of it to really understand it. It goes back to muscles doing what your brain tells them to do. So this is the most important muscle up here. And if you know what you want to express, then it's a matter of teaching your muscles how to get the idea from here out, whether it's vocally or through an instrument or however it is. But it's got to be up here first. That's So music is a language. It's a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.